Hi everybody, today I'm going to be talking about the Belarus protest in 2020. So Belarus is a country in Europe and it used to be a part of the Soviet Union. President Alexander Lukashenko has been in power for the last 26 years. He is Europe's longest ruling ruler and often referred to as Europe's last dictator. When he came into power after the fall of the Soviet Union, he tried to preserve a lot of the elements of Soviet communism by controlling manufacturing, media channels, and a powerful secret police force called the KGB. He also continues to have a very close relationship with Russia, and his opposition has been fueled by widespread corruption, poverty, a lack of opportunities and pay, which has all been compounded by the coronavirus. And the people were mobilized by alleged election fraud in August of 2020. Last fall, Lukashenko was re-elected president among pretty rampant election fraud rumors. After the authorities announced his re-election, peaceful protests began by the millions in the streets, and authorities responded with extreme violence pretty quickly. Within 3 days, 7,000 people had been detained, and by mid-November, 25,000 people had been detained by the government. Millions have been tortured, including dozens of journalists, political opposition figures, presidential candidates, and civil activists. All the opposition leaders have been either exiled or jailed, and Lukashenko remains in power today, yet the protests still continue. According to a poll done by The Conversation, the people who are most likely to be participating in the protest are men, people that live in the urban population, people that work in the private sector, and people who are better educated. 14% of these people that they polled said that they participated in the protest, although 6% would not answer the question, which raises a safety question, and 80% of those who said they did protest said that they were mobilized by the violence the government inflicted. And the people on the regime side include, obviously, President Lukashenko and his cabinet, and Russia, most specifically Putin, as well as the military, which he continues to have a hold over. The government's response to these protests is a clear human rights violation. The Human Rights Watch issued a report earlier this year saying that. Another consequence is the EU deemed the elections unfree and unfair and do not legitimately recognize Lukashenko as the president of Belarus. Further, the United States, United Kingdom, and the EU all imposed sanctions. There's been violence, detention, and internet shutdowns in Belarus, which has made the protest a moral, not political protest in response to all of the violence. This has also heightened a sense of Belarusian pride, which really has created a really strong sense of nationalism in the country. So revolution. This is a potential revolution because it fits almost all of the characteristics that Brighton laid out. It is a prosperous society, there's spread of technology, there's the growth of the middle class and really strong group norms. There's bitter class antagonisms because there's such a high degree of poverty and little opportunity. And the intellectual allegiance transfer has happened because majority of the supporters are well educated and the global community has condemned the nation's actions. There's been a high governmental failure, obviously, in an election that is unfair. And there has been a stagnation of the economy in the last few years, which has really made the government look bad. The problem is where the old ruling class comes in. This all is dependent on Lukashenko, and right now it does not seem like he is going to release his hold on the nation. And this is a social revolution, more specifically a rightist one, because they want to restore the democratic structure to society while also maintaining social order. So for class, Belarus's government's repressive reaction is ineffective because the violence legitimizes the revolution. This is a good example of it. It has alienated the people further from the state, as stopping the spread of information, and therefore criticism of the political system is impossible. And this is also an example of contained contention because the citizens do not seek to eradicate democracy. Instead, they wish to replace the leader of the government, releasing the nation from the dictatorship, which has defined it for so long. And lastly, most revolutions happen in a low-capacity dictatorship. While Belarus is technically a democracy, the 26-year reign of Lukashenko begs to differ on what democracy really is and if Belarus actually qualifies. Here are my sources, and thank you for listening.